Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're heading straight out to the digital frontier. And honestly, we're going to talk about map making. Now, not the kind of map making with compasses and topography, but the mapping of hidden digital infrastructure. If you're managing a modern network right now, you already know that things are expanding at just a crazy pace. You've got cloud instances, microservices, APIs popping up literally everywhere. And the reality is, to defend it, you have to find it first. So today, we're looking at what is arguably the ultimate cartographer's tool for the cybersecurity professional. We're talking about OWASP Amass. So here is our quick roadmap for today. We're going to define the hidden attack surface, meet OWASP Amass, compare passive versus active recon, see how to visualize the network, run a recon tool showdown, and then tie it all together with a real-world defense case study on the Log4j crisis. Let's get right into it. Section 1. The hidden attack surface. It really all boils down to this one pivotal question. How exactly do you secure what you don't even know exists? I mean, it's a completely terrifying thought for any security professional. We're talking about the dangers of shadow IT, forgotten test servers left running, undocumented APIs. You see, when a company spins up new cloud infrastructure, or say they acquire another business entirely, their digital footprint sprawls outward. And if the internal security team doesn't have a map of that sprawl, well, malicious attackers are going to happily draw one for them. Think of your attack surface as the sum of literally everything exposed to the internet. And as noted by industry experts like Kento Stewart, the older and larger your organization is, the more likely it is that you just have a massive amount of stuff publicly accessible out there, right? It's not just your main.com website anymore. It's old video game servers, it's industrial control systems, legacy databases. The works. Moving on to Section 2. Meet OWASP Amass. You know, academic research, like a fascinating paper from the International Journal for Multidisciplinary Research, heavily stresses this one core point. The rapid growth of cloud infrastructure requires scalable and automated reconnaissance techniques. Doing traditional, manual information gathering, it simply cannot keep up with the speed at which developers are deploying new internet-facing assets today. You absolutely need an automated workhorse to do the heavy lifting. And that is exactly where Amass comes in. As an OWASP Flagship Project, it is specifically built from the ground up to perform external asset discovery. Instead of just looking at one single target, it goes wide. If you point it at an organization, it doesn't just find the main web server. No. It actively hunts down the development servers, the API gateways, the VPN portals, and all the underlying DNS and IP relationships to build a completely holistic picture of the network. Now, to clear up a bit of common confusion here, Amass is often compared to tools like Nmap, but they really serve totally different purposes. Think of it like this. Amass is the tool that finds the house itself. It maps the entire perimeter, it tells you exactly where the property lines are. Nmap, on the other hand, is the tool you use once you've already found the house. You use it to walk up and check which specific doors and windows are left unlocked. Make sense?
All right, Section 3, passive versus active recon.
Understanding the operational trade-off here is absolutely crucial. Passive reconnaissance is stealthy. Amass can basically query public APIs, certificate transparency logs, and public datasets without ever directly touching the target's actual servers. It's quiet. Active reconnaissance, however, means Amass is actively sending packets to the target, performing DNS brute forcing and direct interactions. It gives you a much deeper exploration profile for sure, but it generates noise. And please remember, active recon requires explicit authorization. You do not want to be doing this without permission. So, to actually execute these techniques, penetration testers rely on a few essential daily commands. First up, intel. This is for horizontal discovery, finding entirely new root domains owned by a company. Then, once you have a root domain, you switch to enum for vertical discovery. This digs straight down to find all the subdomains tied to that specific root. And finally, track. This one is just incredibly powerful. It allows you to run scans on a continuous basis, meaning it automatically alerts you to any newly discovered assets over time. Let's jump to Section 4, visualizing the network. So running all these commands generates just an immense amount of text data. And let's be honest, reading thousands of lines of IP addresses is exhausting. Nobody wants to do that. But the OAM tool suite, which works right alongside Amass, shifts this from raw text into beautiful graphical topographies. It generates interactive visual maps where you can actually see the relationships connecting a massive corporate infrastructure together. It is a total game changer. Section 5, the Recon Tool Showdown. When we look at the comparative analysis from that IJFMR paper I mentioned earlier, it tells a really fascinating story of speed versus depth. Tools like Asset Finder and Subfinder are incredibly fast, right? Clocking in at around 3 and 5 minutes respectively. But because they use strictly passive techniques, they inevitably miss things. Amass takes significantly longer, around 22 minutes, because it uses a hybrid approach, combining both active and passive methods. But just wait until you see the resulting data. The time investment with Amass is absolutely worth it if your ultimate goal is comprehensiveness. On its own, it unearthed 421 subdomains. It digs far, far deeper than the purely passive tools. But here's a secret. The real magic happens when you orchestrate all these tools together rather than treating them as competitors. The researchers actually found that by combining these tools into an automated pipeline, so starting with enumeration across multiple tools, deduplicating those results, passing them to a live host validator like HTTPX, and then finally feeding that into a vulnerability scanner, they achieved massive efficiency. Get this, a process that used to take over 2 hours to parse manually dropped to just 31 minutes of automated execution, and it discovered the highest number of assets. Section 6. Real-world defense, log4j. Let's look at a practical example. Now, when the log4j vulnerability hit a few years back, it was a total nightmare. Literally. It was easily exploitable remotely via the internet, and it affected just a massive amount of software. Security teams worldwide were scrambling. For large organizations, like the Westpac example detailed in Kenzo Stewart's presentation, the immediate crisis wasn't even just about patching. The first hurdle was answering the question, wait, which of our hundreds of internet-facing applications actually run this thing, and where are they? To give you a sense of scale from the academic study on this, running a combined Amass pipeline reliably identified 29 true positive vulnerabilities on a target network. And it did the whole thing in under an hour. In a full-blown crisis like log4j, that kind of speed is literally the difference between a successfully patched system and a catastrophic headline-making breach. So how do you actually apply this in a corporate crisis? Well, Westpac used a textbook strategy. First, they leveraged internal sources in the Amass Intel command to identify all root domains based on their certificate registrations. Next, they unleashed the enum command to map out every single subdomain attached to those roots. Armed with that incredibly comprehensive map, they could confidently execute their targeted log4j scanning scripts. Finally, they integrated the track function. This ensured that any new shadow IT spun up the very next day would trigger an immediate alert. Because at the end of the day, solid asset management is the true foundation of security. Which brings us to the end of this explainer and leaves you with a little something to think about. Amass proves that your perimeter isn't just some static wall. It's a living, breathing ecosystem that is constantly shifting and expanding. So I challenge you to put on your own map maker's hat for a second and ask yourself, what hidden assets are lurking in your organization's digital footprint today? Thank you so much for watching and stay curious.